All right, welcome to Count It Off, another episode from Nashville, Tennessee, here at the home studio. Got a wonderful guy today. I've been looking forward to interviewing him. We go way back.
Way back.
This is Russ Pahl from Maple Plain, Minnesota.
That's right.
Or is that a top secret? Do we need to scratch that?
No, I think I'm trying to hang on to my roots.
That's good, yeah. And Russ is here to talk about the world of steel guitar from tip to toe of the world. I mean, you've traveled the globe, and we're going to get into some of that. So Russ is just a wonderful friend, and I'm delighted to have him here. And so let's kick off the show. Marsha, will you kick it off?
Welcome to Count It Off with your host, Jeff Dayton, where we explore the world of music through the eyes of some fascinating guests. So get tuned up and let's count it off.
All right. Hey, Russ, welcome. Glad you're here, man.
Thank you, folks.
I'm partly fire sign theater, too.
Okay, good.
I still have that old sense of humor.
Good.
Okay, check this out, you guys. This is Russ Pahl's claim to fame. Well, just let me say maybe 20% of his claim to fame. But Sturgill Simpson, Carrie Underwood, Dierks Bentley, Norah Jones, Blake Shelton, Orville Peck, Marcus King, CeLo Green, Yola, Jim Lauderdale, Buddy Miller. Early days in Minneapolis, we'll get into that. Playing with Dickie Betts, Michael Johnson, Leon Russell, Elton John, Vince Gill. Dude.
Well, I look at it as I don't seem to be able to keep a job.
Yeah, no, close.
Okay.
Yeah. Man, I tell you, though, there's something about your career that, first of all, I'm really grateful to still know you, and I'm grateful we're still good friends.
Well, we go way back. I was in the same school as your sister, and I were in the same class.
Yeah,
so.
Yeah, and your sister Nancy was a year older, and if I remember right, she was a redhead, right? Back in the day?
Back in the day.
Yeah, nobody's redhead for long, not at our age. But yeah, we went to Orono High School, and you were the legend of the time. I mean, everybody in the school, everybody wanted to play in bands.
Right.
And all of us wanted to play in bands. And I had some, crummy little bands. I mean, really terrible bands. Tommy Wells, Billy Waldron, we had Duncan Hanna for a drummer for a little while.
I remember Duncan, yeah.
Dan Keekley on bass. And and we did the best we could. But you seemed to cut right through the pack to the golden, opportunities.
I don't know. You're making that look awfully good. But, it's just, I've always had the drive to play the guitar. And, it's funny. I look back over the years, and I started out being the little kid who was playing with all the older guys. Then one day I woke up and realized I was the old guy playing with all the younger guys, and I don't remember the crossing point.
Well, I remember going out to see you somewhere, might have been west of Maple Plain, maybe Rockford or something out there, and you were playing in a country band, and you were killing it, man. You were playing all that Buck Owens stuff. And you seem to you had that target that you wanted to play. Is that true? Is that what you always gravitated towards, or was it just everything?
Well, mostly everything, because, we're all Beatle babies. I mean, we all saw the Beatles and Ed Sullivan, and that's probably what kicked most of us into gear, of our generation, you and me. And but somewhere along the line, I got pulled into the country orbit, and I kind of was, I was a little reluctant at first because I remember playing with this band, and we had a chance to go on, I think there was a show called Polka Parade or something in Minneapolis, and they were talking about, we might be able to go be guests, and I'm going, I don't know about that. I don't know if I want my friends to see me doing that. And then I, got into the country orbit, and I was always attracted to the I think that's what got me into pedal steel guitar was that whole tone change on a pedal steel. That just anytime somebody, Lovin' Spoonful, when I first heard that, it just hit a nerve, and it still does. Yeah,
and it's the way it's the B-bender that Clarence had too.
I mean, exactly.
Back then, that just lit me up, and I think that bent my, no pun intended, bent me towards playing that type of music.
Right,
I love Clarence and the Byrds. That was just crazy. But you played country, you played rock, you played everything, and you were known as a guitar player and a pedal steel player.
Well, I started out on guitar, and both my sisters They were for several years older than me, and they were into folk music, like 1961, 62, and Joan Baez and Theodore Bickel and Peter, Paul, and Mary and all that. And there was a big commercialization of that at the time.
Yeah, and for me, it was Kingston Trio with that.
Right,
Man, huge fans.
So, and the Limelighters, all those different groups.
Guess who played guitar on Live from the Hungry Eye? Glenn Campbell.
See, there you go.
We're going to get to that too.
So anyhow, I got into it through them, that my sister had a guitar and I was learning to strum some chords on it. And I remember seeing the Beatles on Ed Sullivan, and I think that was on a Sunday evening. Mm. The next day I came home after school and went down in my dad's workshop and put knobs on the acoustic guitar because I wanted it to look like the Beatles. I didn't know what the knobs did, but I knew where they went. So.
Man, I bet you the day after that, there probably was a mad rush at Kullberg Music in Wayzata too for people buying every guitar in the store.
Yep. George Kullberg. I remember that
Yes,
story.
I do. And in fact, I had a chance as the circle was completing for him. I was at Spring Park Homes, Press Homes, whatever, Presbyterian Homes there in Spring Park. Uh-huh. And the gal at the desk, his name was Kullberg. And I said, I knew a wonderful old man. His name was George Kullberg. And she goes, that's my dad, and he's upstairs right now. And I got to go up, and they were having lunch, and his wife was with him. And I went up and thanked him. I said, George, Mr. Kullberg, of course, my mom bought my first guitar from your store for $24. It was a Stella. It had a painted sunburst finish, and it was no piece of art at all. But you got me started on the music career that I have, and I told him a little bit about the people I'd been with and the things I'd done, and I just wanted to thank you for giving me my start. And he smiled as big as could be, and he said, tell my wife, because she's the one that remembers all this stuff.
Well, I remember my parents had me take a couple lessons there. I was not interested in all at what they wanted to teach me. Yeah. And they finally went, you're not getting this. And then as soon as I wasn't taking the lessons anymore, I dug in and just was teaching myself.
I know exactly what you mean. I think his name was Jim, and he taught Spanish guitar.
Right.
And the second lesson was buzzing on the B string, which was written by an etude geek that had no musical taste at all. So, yeah, I was the same way. And I conned a friend of mine out in White Bear Lake. His babysitter was there with us, and she showed me the chords to give me my boots and saddle. And that was an actual lesson.
Okay.
And I could play guitar and sing. Not that it means anything, but I remember it was an A chord.
Okay, well, the A chord, I was playing one earlier this morning, so they stuck. It stuck.
That's great. Well, you were, as I mentioned, back in high school, you were so well known, and you had the red, white, and blue Buck Owens guitar.
Of course.
I remember that.
Yep.
I remember that. And I was in a band called Atlantic Queen with Dick Swanson, Paul Stulfout, Tom Wells, and Duncan Hanna.
Yep.
And me, and we played in the Orno cafeteria.
Right.
And after the gig, there was an agent that was there, and he said, I like the band, but get rid of the guitar player. And so they hired you, and I've long ago forgiven you for that.
I'm glad.
You know what I mean? It's like, oh my gosh, but they made the right choice.
Well, I've just always been fortunate, been able to go in and be able to fit in. I think it's more than the playing; it's just sort of going and grabbing the vibe of the situation, and that's still what I do. It's not about fancy playing; it's about just being able to join a group and be part of that, part of the organism than being a flashy player, because I'm not a flashy player.
I think you hit something really valuable right on the head there, fitting in and finding the part. I think Nashville guys in the studios that really get a lot of work do that.
Yeah. Well, it's every day you go join. It's like you're joining a different band every day. Yeah.
Another guy that really is good at that I think is from the same cloth is Dan Dugmore.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. The best.
Yeah. My friend Lisa used to call him Doug Danmore, just to give him a hard time.
Well, I met Dan many years ago up in Chicago in a situation, and we were friends. And that was before he moved to Nashville. Well, in the early 2000s was about the time that he came to Nashville. And I was just feeling like, oh man, I'm just getting in the record part of the recording business. I was doing lots of publishing demos and everything, but I wanted to play on the real records. And I was just getting there. And then Dan came to town, and it sort of like took all the wind out of my sail. And I wanted to hate him so bad. And I've told him this many times. I had sleepless nights for several years, but he's such a sweet guy, and you can never, he's the perfect guy. So we're still dear friends, and I learned my lesson. My wife always said, you got to wait till it's your time. And, the business is a fickle, weird business, and sometimes it's just not your time. And eventually my time kind of came around, and it was all good.
Dan, for those who don't know, was the steel player with Linda Ronstadt that cut the iconic steel guitar solo of its time, which was Blue Bayou.
Oh, yeah. Well, it still holds up to this day. People still talk about
it.
It
sure does.
Yeah.
Another common friend of ours was Ed Black.
Yep.
And Ed was Linda's guitar player and steel player before Dan.
Right.
And Ed was the guy, he was from Los Angeles, but originally Phoenix, who played on Silver Threads and Golden Needles and so many other things, and introduced me. Anyway, Ed and Dan and I all have Ed was a leather tooler. He made Waylon Tellys. He made the straps for the Desert Rose Band, the belt buckle covers and all of that stuff. And Dan and I were doing something together at SIR for a week with a group, and we got out our Ed Black guitar straps and hung them over his show bud to remember Ed, because I still have mine.
Well, I think Dan and Ed were in the band at the same time for a while. They had 2 steel guitars set up. Wow. That must have been a wild time.
Yeah, I'll bet.
Yeah.
I'll bet. And Ed was kind of a wild man back then, I think. But then again, most of us have survived that era. And
I think we were all a bit wild back then.
Yeah. So back in 1974, I was in Marshall, Minnesota, and I was down there with a new group that we had formed called Tiffany.
Right.
And it was Terry Taylor, Gary Gratz, Petey, Gary Peterson, and Kirby Rule on the bass.
Yep.
And we made the big move to the cities, quote unquote. And we got into town. We got Alpha Productions as an agent.
Right.
Ralph Alpha. But the guy's name was Bill. I'm going to think of it in a minute. And we got booked into these clubs. We were eccentric. I mean, we were like all the mishmash of, farm hippies. I mean, we played the band, and we played Bill Withers, and we played Joni Mitchell, and we played whatever we wanted to do.
Right.
And we were there. We were booked at the Royal Court in Hopkins, which was at Knollwood there.
Yep.
And we had just done the Wednesday night, and it was Thursday, and we were in the club rehearsing for that night. We were trying to learn Leader of the Pack or something like that. And the phone rang at the bar, and the bartender said, "Jeff, it's for you." And it was Bill. He said, "Guys, I'm really sorry, but they don't like you, and you've been fired. And you're being replaced right this minute. You have to pack up and go." And as we're packing up, the white sidewalls come strolling in with their chins and their noses in the air, like we're the winners, and there go the losers. It was the stuff we got to do, man.
Well, that was you were talking earlier about your playlist, and there was a while there where we were reflecting FM radio, and we were doing Joni Mitchell, we were doing Dan Fogelberg, we were doing Stevie Wonder, all of that. But then there was always kind of the back to 50s boom. And those guys, for a short while there, they came in and aced out everybody.
Yeah.
So, it was always a battle of the bands, always.
And think about Minnesota being the crossroads that I always refer to it as. We had folk music, we had all the greats of folk, and of course Bob Dylan being one of the great songwriters of the era.
Right.
We also had Wally Pickle and the polka guys, and the oompa guys, and Sherwin Linton and the old throwback to country guys. Sherwin is still out there.
Oh yeah.
He must be 140 by now.
Oh, he was a big inspiration to me.
Was he really?
Well, I ran into him when I first started playing country music, and he had this kind of big show band. They had all matching custom amps. Remember the custom rolled and pleated amplifier?
Yes, tuck and roll.
The whole stage was full of those.
Oh, wow.
And I remember he had a guitar player named Red Freeman who was from the South, and I'd never really talked to anybody from the South. He had the Southern accent, and it was mesmerizing to me.
Yeah.
And Sherwin had a bender on his guitar. He had a very primitive B bender. He had a homemade double neck Fender.
Wow.
And he had a little thing, a lever that he'd push with his left thumb when he played. And it was a B bender. And years later, I have a picture somewhere of Carl Perkin playing a similar bender thing.
Wow.
So there's, if anybody wants to go down the B bender route, there's some hidden history out there.
Yeah, I bet you could talk about a lot of that, because I just did a little dropping in on some interviews you've done on YouTube and whatnot. You look Russ up, it's Russ Pahl, P-A-H-L. Of course, they'll know that by reading the description. But you have amassed not only an appreciation, but a wealth of knowledge about all the trivia of all these people and where they played, when they played, and what they played.
Well, I get bored easily, so I studied a lot. But it's just all very interesting, just all the stories that go with it and the history, the craftsmanship. I'm a tinkerer. I'm always tearing stuff apart. I'm always in my workshop, and I'm real attracted to all that.
Man. Well, I know that about you because we were roommates for a while.
Oh, yes.
And when Tiffany moved to Minneapolis, Kirby and you and I, was it Kirby or was it Petey that lived with us? It was Petey, maybe.
Yep.
You and Petey and I lived, we found a house on 29th, just before Park and Lake.
Right.
I mean, like 9 blocks from the George Floyd thing.
Yep.
And tragedy that it was. And your bedroom was always the workshop.
Yes.
And I'll tell people, I said, Russ had a steel guitar set up to practice and 2 more upside down that he was monkeying with.
Yep. And it hasn't changed a bit. Wasn't there a guy downstairs who had a pet wolf on the porch?
Yes.
It was a crazy household.
His name was Zeno.
Of course.
Yeah. And he had a couple of them, in fact, and he got in all kinds of trouble.
Yeah.
It was curious. And he had that little patio out there, like a little veranda.
Right.
We didn't have that. We just had windows,
Yeah.
But I remember thinking this morning, I was telling my son Kessler about us, and I said, we lived on the 3rd floor of a place in Minneapolis that had no elevator. We had to walk our gear up those stairs before and after every single gig.
Well, we were in shape back then.
That's true. I think I was 21 at the time,
Yeah.
And you were playing with the Sky Blue Water Boys, right?
I think at that time I was playing actually with a group called Toonsmith.
Yes, Chuck Dolly.
And
Donnie Hansen.
Yes, yeah.
What a band.
Yeah. I had a habit of putting bands together. I've always been kind of a connector. And I would go, well, here's an interesting guy. And their band is breaking up. Let's get him and start a band. And so we put together Toonsmith to go do club work. And we played disco. We played funk. We had a place at a supper club where we played 5 hours a night. The first 2 hours were dinner music. Wow. So we were doing Dan Fogelberg songs and Joni Mitchell songs. And then the last 3 hours were dance music. So then we were playing Doobie Brothers and just all the dance stuff. So
I remember how good Donnie played on listening to the music.
Yeah.
And his foot was doing it just right. And I remember I was amazed at the dexterity of his kick drum.
Oh, yeah. What a great drummer. Great drummer.
Groove guy, yeah. I remember coming to see you guys, and I was dating Debbie Ganshaw at the time. Then we eventually moved in with me there on Park Avenue, and then we went on other places. But she was all dressed up for a club night. She had on the shirt for clubs, and she was going to dance. And it was just, you guys were a spectacularly good band.
Well, it was a good gathering of folks. We had a really good singer named Johnny Elms, who was just a great. He kind of was. Like David Clayton Thomas from Blood, Sweat, and Tears, just one of those R&B, really good throaty singers.
Wow.
Always trouble. I was the guy. He lost his driver's license just because he got in drinking trouble, and so I had to pick him up all the time. That was part of my job, and he was never on time. I'd sit and wait in the driveway for him. Just a typical musician.
Yeah, we were that way. Weren't we? In fact, you're right, because Kirby was busy with us with Tiffany.
Yep.
And Tiffany didn't last all that long. And then that's when you and Dan Lund and Kurt Werner, our late great friend.
Yeah.
And Becky Reamer.
Yep. Yeah. Yes. I just talked to Becky the other night.
Did you?
I talked to Dan Lund the other night.
Oh, my God. Well, you're good at staying connected.
Yeah. Well, they're we had a very special bond in that band. That was, we had a couple years where we were the thing in downtown Minneapolis. And
was it called the Longhorn?
No, it was Zacharias.
Zacharias.
Yeah, and we played 18 to 20 months, 5 or 6 nights a week, and we just held court. It was great, and then it went downhill from there. And 2 years later, we were still keeping the name, but we were playing the Blaine Bowl and playing, all the awful bowling alley bars.
I remember the Blaine Brook Bowl.
Yes.
Yep. We played a lot of those places. Well, I'm going to take the liberty of playing some stuff that you're on, and you have a record out called Not What I Expected,
right.
Which is a vinyl only thing.
Well, now it's streaming. I finally had to stream
Is it really?
Yes, I had to give in.
you caved.
Well, I pressed up 1,000 copies of it, and I sent it out to everybody in my address book. And half the people said, "Man, I really love that record, except I don't have a turntable, so I don't know what it sounds like, but it looks really cool."
It does have a little throwback kind of look to it.
Yes.
Sort of like a 50s modern.
Well, that's my daughter, Hannah, who 5 years of art school, and that's what I got out of it.
Okay. Well, here's something of mine that you played on, and I wasn't there when you tracked your part, but you were kind enough to send the overdub for it. And this is one that people have said to me, Jeff, Kenny Chesney ought to cut this song. So see what y'all think on this. Here we go. Sitting in a deck chair watching that big red sun go dropping into the water and out of sight. Thinking about the time that we were caught up in a runaway fever, as close as it gets to getting it right. And I don't know where you went. As for me, ever since I've been riding the wind in a little white boat, one day ahead of a heart that's broke, falling asleep to the waves in a world of blue. Thinking about coulda, shoulda, what have I done? Must have gone crazy in the hot noon sun. Now all I've got to get me through are blue skies, warm nights, high tides, islands, guitars, and you. Thank you for that just moody steel guitar playing. That ain't Pete Drake, I'm sure of that.
Well, I was thinking there's a little bit of Sneaky Pete in there.
Oh, I remember in our day, back then, you were totally into the West Coast.
Oh, yeah.
And, all those guys. Right now, we should take a minute to thank Clem Schmitz, who brought steel guitar to Minneapolis in a way that it never had.
Absolutely. Well, there was actually it's interesting. Clem was just the culmination of, I have this theory that there's a couple places. South Bend, Indiana is where Buddy Emmons and Jerry Byrd are both from. Detroit is where Paul Franklin is from. There's all these industrial northern cities. Minneapolis is a big industrial town in the 50s and 60s. Lots of Honeywell, Westinghouse. And so what there was a lot of bars that hired country music. So there was work. There was paying work for people to play steel guitar. So there's these steel guitar cultures. And there was guys up there building steel guitars in Minneapolis. Everybody thinks it's a southern thing, but there was a great, Minneapolis was kind of a hot spot. And then Clem started that store in the early 70s.
Yeah, on East Lake Street.
Yep.
The Steel Guitar Emporium.
And he got the Emmons franchise. And Clem is still one of the great artists of the underneath of a steel guitar. I don't think he could play a note. But he was one of the best mechanics and technicians. And he wrote a book on it. And
did he really?
Yeah, you can. I think you can find it on eBay. It's got a strange title.
Well, the hang down there was spectacular because you were part of that. Mike Cass was there.
Yep.
Denny Hemmingson.
Yep.
Little old Jeff Dayton.
Yeah, yeah.
And Brian Peters.
Yeah.
You know, so many of us that just centrified at that store. And then Clem would bring people in like Emmons, like, you know, Jeff Newman, like
Hal Rugg. Weldon Myrick, all those guys.
And these seminars, and we would just gather and buy everything they had for sale. And we, I tell you what, but it was so good for us because, you know, I remember Mike Smith coming over with the Gatlin brothers, you know, with Steve Smith, the guitar player.
Yep.
It was such great players.
Well, the people would come in, what was it, the Carlton Celebrity Room, remember that?
Yes,
and so there was always people, Mel Tillis would come through there. So there was always players, and Clem would go out there and get them to come to the store. So.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. And, you know, you mentioned steel builders. I got you to thank again for hopping in the pickup truck with me on 146 in Long Lake. We got a carafe of coffee from my mom, and we drove up to Gonvick, Minnesota.
Elvin Erickson.
God bless him.
Yep, Elvin. We both had. I had several of his guitars. I bought one from him, and that's where I met Dan Lund. Was going up to.
Really?
Yeah, I met him out at Elvin's little shop. So.
Well, we stopped at Dan's place on the way to the place.
Yeah.
And I remember he had something I'd never seen. He had a tweed Harvard.
Yeah.
And a rosewood telly. The George Harrison model.
Yeah, one of the first batch.
Yeah.
He still has that guitar.
Oh, smartly so.
Yeah.
Well, I remember Elvin had that little shack out in the yard. He had a bunch of Chevys that he worked on, and he made his own parts, didn't he?
Yeah, he just with a bandsaw and a drill press, he made pedal steels from scratch.
Man, and they were kind of showbud knockoffs in a way.
Yeah, in spirit. Yeah, and they're beautiful maple, and they were really good guitars. They're really good guitars.
My first slide guitar was a Gibson BR9, the cream and tan.
Yep.
That I bought from Tommy Fox for $20. I wish I'd kept it, but I've had 4 more since then. I have one in the back. Same era, you know, early 50s. Yep. And I remember just looking at that steel guitar shop and going, I want one of those. I want one of those. And Elvin, the sweet guy that he was, he took a look at me. He said, you look like a good kid. I know you'll pay me for it. Go ahead and take one home. And he sent me home with a red single neck.
Yep, I remember that guitar.
Yeah. And I played that thing for the longest time in everything I did. And I got work as a steel player because there weren't that many of us for the amount of work.
Yep.
But I remember when Barefoot Jerry came to town, and I went and stood right in front of Russ Hick. And it was the first time I'd ever seen a set list. A set list.
Oh, well, see, I was at that show too. And I tried to buy that guitar because that was before Clem had his Emmons dealership. Oh. And I always thought, well, he has a guitar. He'll probably sell that to me. You know? He can go get another one.
Well, I talked to him. It was a 2-show deal, and they were there for 2 nights. And I talked him into giving me a lesson at their hotel the next day. So I brought my Erickson up to the hotel, and they had adjoining rooms for the band, you know, and everybody's just hanging around. It's a day, you know. There's nothing to do during the day in Minneapolis in whatever time of year. And Russ sat down at my Erickson, and the thing started to sway from side to side, and he's trying to push it and knee lever it, and he goes, oh, son, a good guitar is going to spoil you. I'll never forget, though, that was my first lesson. And then, of course, I went right down to Clem's and bought an Emmons, an old push-pull single neck.
Oh, yeah.
I had to get 1.5 longer rods on it.
Well, I see. I also have to shorten mine. So.
I don't think they make them that short, dude. No, Russ, you're plenty good. But, you know, those were fun days, and I'm grateful for that. And I still stay in touch with Denny and with Brian Peters.
Oh,
and,
me too.
Our folks. You do even better at that. I mean, you said you just talked to Denny Morgan last night.
Yeah. I saw him at the BMI Awards, and you know, he's still writing songs. He's still got the spirit.
Let's go back to the song I played a minute ago,
okay.
Islands, Guitars, and You. Your approach to that song, want to talk about that at all?
Well, there's a lot of guys. I've been very lucky that I've been able to have a career playing the steel guitar in Nashville, that's a pretty tall order because it is the steel guitar capital of the world.
No kidding.
But I came here in, I think, late 84, moved down here. And the first night I came down here, I went down to the Hall of Fame Inn, and Phil Bow had a band there.
I remember that band. I do.
And the first night, Paul Franklin was playing steel.
Yes.
Then I went down the second night, and Buddy Emmons was playing steel.
Oh, my God.
And first thing I did was I sold the part. I took the back neck off my steel, my double neck steel, and I thought, I'm not going to play C6. There's just no way. And I also realized there's no way that I can even participate in that game. Those guys are so advanced and so highly developed as players. And I thought the only way I'm going to do this is kind of come up with my own way. And it's, you know, I always think of it as kind of a dumbed down version of the instrument, but, you know, dumb is good in you know, as a musician. People usually say, could you play a little less? Could you play a little less? Well, I like to get it when they go, well, could you play a little more? Could you play a little more?
Yeah.
But, and that's kind of my approach. Like in your song, I think of it more of as just halos and textures. You know, I could get in there and come up with clever parts and this and that, and that's good too. But like on your song, I just tried to play little halos, I think in terms of size, and, you know, when people make expressions, they go, you know, things like that. And I try to imitate that with the steel guitar.
Wow. Let me run another one here.
Yeah.
This is one, and this might have been the first stuff of mine that ever got recorded that you were on.
Okay.
It was at Emporium B,
Okay.
and it was a Major Bob music production on a guy named Jason Seaver, who has gone on to some pretty cool success in town. And we had a batch of 5 songs, and I was co-writer of all 5. And so I was able to be down there because I got to just hang to see the songs get cut. But also Michael Spriggs needed to chart some future session, and so he just got off the chair on the acoustic, and I played on one of the songs. But here's one. From
Do you know what year this would have been?
2004?
Okay,
maybe
great,
somewhere
great.
in there. Okay, let's just listen to this. I'm on acoustic on this, I remember.
All right.
I was just 17
This is Jason singing.
in a little town full of weathered frowns and tumbleweeds. Throwing seeds on rocky ground wouldn't grow my dreams. So one Friday night I blew the one red light towards destiny. It was waiting on me. There was Hollywood, like a welcome sign on a hillside. Man, it looked so good. I took a $20 room in a $10 neighborhood and spent a summer trying to open doors that never would be the star I thought I could. But sometimes you live life where you end up. You get by with enough's enough. Then you ask yourself what you're fighting for. 'Cause one more is just one more. I can throw my life in the wishing well, walk on and tell myself, even when I don't understand, it's alright to be right where I am.
That's really great playing, Russ.
Okay, well, you too.
Oh, thanks. Yeah. What a band that day, though. I remember it was Chris McHugh on drums.
Okay.
And Brigg on bass.
Yep.
And the mandolin was Spriggs. He came back and overdubbed that.
Okay.
And then J.D. Cornfloss on electric.
I
And-
miss JT.
Yeah, JT, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That was good. I enjoyed that.
All right.
I haven't heard it since then.
Well, it's again just illustrating how your work on steel guitar works around the singer. And I've seen it so many times where guys come in that aren't seasoned session guys, and they just play all the way through the song.
Right,
They
right.
play the solo, and then they keep playing for the third verse. You know, I remember playing a gig one time with a certain, I think he was a fiddle player, and he was just happy. You know, he was cutting logs over there, man. That saw just kept going. And I said, "Man, I love when you play." And he goes, "Thanks." I said, "I love when you don't play." And for the next 2 songs, I couldn't get one note out of him. It was like, I know I said that the wrong way, but leave some space, you know.
Yeah, he's probably recovered by now.
Yeah, I'm sure, just like me or like you getting, you know. Anyway, your steel guitar world, I mean, you've worked with all these people. Have you carried the same philosophy into every single kind of project you've been part of? Because I read off this list, I mean, playing with Carrie Underwood and then playing with, CeLo Green. I mean, that's like opposite ends of a pop spectrum,
Well, it's interesting to me because to me, it's all comes down to the song, and more often than not, most of this is basically kind of pop music or pop country music. So it's all simple. The songs themselves, if you break it down, if you write a little chord chart and you don't do all the details, if you just put the chords in there, it's a set of simple patterns. And the great, and another man I miss is Michael Rhodes, a great bass player. And I read an interview with him many years ago where he said, every song I play I just see it all in these patterns, and the patterns get longer. And, for me, and I just see, okay, there, I'll play that pattern. So I can, not that he's going to play a pattern, but it's like following a roadmap where you've got a pattern, and then you can play over that. And you're not thinking about individual notes or individual chords. You're just thinking of this line of changes. And so all of that stuff, everybody you read there, if you really break it down, it's a simple set of chords.
Man, that's interesting. You toured with Leon Russell and Elton John.
Oh yeah.
What's that world like?
Oh, that was wonderful. That was one of those things that follows me around to this day, and it was great. They had done a record together. T-Bone Burnette produced, and I wasn't there for the tracking, but he sent me a couple songs to overdub on here in Nashville. And then they decided to put a tour together. So I got to go do that. And amazing. Elton John is the hardest working man I've ever met. He was always the first guy at every rehearsal, and he was the last one to leave. And he was there to work. And then once he starts playing, you better dig in, because he's not going to wait for you. And no, he was wonderful. He was wonderful. Leon Russell, one day during the tour, we were all at the airport, and his guy comes over to me and says, Leon wants to talk to you. So I go over there, and he said, man, I want your phone number. I like your playing. I want to stay in touch with you. And he did. And we ended up doing a record. It was the last thing he did before he passed away. Really? And it was kind of an orchestrated record. And I got to go in, just sit with him and me in the control room for a couple days and just kind of sculpt out steel guitar parts. Wonderful, wonderful musician.
Did you have the patience to wait for the right part to come along?
Yeah. He would just, we would kind of, I would make one of my chord charts so I could follow it out. And, luckily, I don't think, we didn't have to work that hard. A good song a really good, well-written song is embedded with lots of information. And I've got a chance to learn from some really good session players, that I look up to. If you look into the song, everything you need to know is there embedded in that song. And you just pick it out, and most of the time it will tell you what to play.
I've heard that kind of comment from Scotty Sanders.
Yeah, absolutely.
He said, Jeff, you bring in songs that play themselves.
Yeah, exactly. No, a song that there's a million songs. We've played on a million demos in this town.
Yeah.
Not every one is a real song. Some of them is just it's like a run-on sentence. It just doesn't make any sense. It sounds like a song, but then a well-written song, like I say, is embedded. Everything you need to know is right there.
Wow. That's pretty interesting. How about Vince Gill?
Vince,
I've seen you play in the Crossroads Festival in Vince's band with Billy Thomas, who was a dear pal. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I got to work. Billy was on that gig last night. We did at BMI. Vince is another guy that he's the first guy, hardest working man. He wants to be in the band. He's a reluctant star. He'd rather just be a guitar player. And you better hang on, or you don't hang on. You better dig in. When you start a song and he looks over at you to play something, you better play something. So I was lucky. I got to play with Vince for about, I think, five touring years.
Wow, that's great. I've gotten to back him up on one-offs. And I remember one time he just gave me that look like it was time to play.
Yeah.
And after the song was over, Glenn Campbell was right in the front row, and he goes, "Hey, that was a good solo you played on that One More Last Chance." I said, "Thanks." He said, "Take it," and I thought he said, "Fake it," because that's what I was doing. He said, "But you remember one note you played?" I said, "Nope, not one note."
No.
I was just like off the stage, floating.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's where a lot of really cool stuff lives, is, just up there in the ether.
I like that. Yeah, I would have loved to have done more of that. I remember running into him at the old Carter Vintage. That was in his first location. And he was down there with a kid that he was buying a guitar for from his church,
Yep.
And he said, "Hey, Vince," this is right when he had joined the Eagles. I said, "How do you like being out there with all those rock stars?" He goes, "I love it, man. No expenses."
Well, I was around him for 5 years, and I can't think of a negative thing to say about him. He's embarrassingly talented, and he doesn't carry that baggage with him like a lot of people do. He's just a real good guy, and he would never throw you under the bus. He would never put you in a situation that he wouldn't go into himself.
Wow, that's classy. How about Willie Nelson?
Willie, we did a record with T-Bone Burnette, and it was all acoustic instruments except for me. And we just spent a week at Sound Emporium in the big room, just bringing out songs, and we would just play them, and we probably cut 30 or 40 songs. I don't know what ended up on the record, probably 15. But Willie was great. He let me play Trigger.
Oh my gosh, yeah, the old N20 that Martin.
Oh yeah. Well, I remember walking in the first day, and just out in the middle of the floor was this guitar on a stand, just kind of like, just
like
this
the
holy
statue
relic. But then there's this big guy standing next to it, and we called him Lurch. It was kind of his guy who watched the guitar and rolled his joints. I can't remember his name. But I was looking at it one day, and Willie walked in and said, "Well, man, pick it up and play it." So, and Willie was great. We did the record. We did a few with that band. We did a few TV shows. I think we did Letterman. We did something out in California. We were in New York to do a TV show, and he was going to do a concert in New York that night. And Paul English, his drummer, had a stroke or something. So at the last minute, they said, "Okay, guys, Willie's band isn't going to do the gig. They're going to fly home. We're going to play the gig with him." So here we were, a bunch of us. We went and played with Willie. We played a gig. Willie was one of the best band leaders I've ever been in. He sat up there with his acoustic guitar and led us through everything.
Oh, man.
That was very interesting.
That is cool. I had the honor and the pleasure of playing one gig with Willie.
Yeah.
And it was the Century Plaza Hotel, Gene Autry's Western Heritage Museum, but it wasn't built yet. And it was the fundraiser. So Black Tie, Angie Dickinson, James Garner, all these Hollywood types. And Glenn Campbell, was my boss. And he said, "Jeff, Willie wants to play at this thing, but he doesn't have a band. Would you guys mind backing him up?" I said, "Absolutely not." And so we did a little rehearsal in the afternoon, and he came in, and he had that funky old solid-state Baldwin amp.
Oh, yeah.
And his guy said, "We buy all of these we can just to find spare parts.
Right.
Because these things break down. But that's the sound Willie wants." And then that guitar came out with the extra hole in it, the one you're talking about, Trigger. And he plugged it in, and you know how tired we get of bar songs. We play 5 nights a week. We've got to sing, Blue Eyes Crying in the Rain.
Right.
We're rewriting the words just to keep from being bored. We had 2 guys flying in a plane,
Yep.
But he started, dang, 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 and I just went, it's a brand new song. I have never been tired of his stuff since.
Yeah.
It blew my mind.
Yeah, no, he's the best. Well, I'm going to ask you.
Yeah.
I'm going to interview you. I want you to tell me about Glenn Campbell, because I'm a huge Glenn Campbell fan. I have a very short list of perfect records in my brain. Mm-hmm. There's maybe 10. That is, it's a combination of great performance, great song, great recording, everything perfect.
Okay.
Penny Lane is on that list. Oh. Well, Wichita Lineman is on that list.
Oh.
It's just the most amazing record. I listen to it every week. I'll put it on. Just
really.
But And I just realized he must have been a powerhouse because he's just so talented. What was he like?
He was just that, but he couldn't help being himself. And he was a country boy underneath all of that sophistication. So he knew how to roll in Hollywood. He knew how to do well in movies. In fact, when he got the offer from John Wayne to be in True Grit, he complained. He said, "I don't know anything about acting." And John Wayne said, "Well, that never stopped me." So he said, "Tell you what, Campbell, I'll make you a deal. You don't act and I won't sing." And Glenn said, "I kept that bargain." So,
oh man,
yeah, it was like being with a guy who was so good. He knew how good he was, and he had no idea how good he was.
Yep.
I mean, he could come off the golf course. He played, 27 holes,
right,
and then come in and just tear the guitar apart and destroy everybody else who's all warmed up. That has done nothing but practice all day.
So, was he generally a pretty high energy guy?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, he was an alpha horse, for sure. And his upbringing, he was burnt up with desire and ambition. And I remember he was telling me that he was on "You've Lost That Love and Feeling," and "You Never Close Your Eyes." And he said that little so and so Bobby Hatfield was out there singing, and he said, "I can do that better than him." I mean, that's what he was. He wanted that spot. He knew that he wanted that. Oh. And he said he quit the Beach Boys because he was tired of being identified with an older group. But he always was joking. He had the Roger Miller joke book at his hip all the time. But a lot of the things that he said when he put that away were just truly caring, wonderful things, He cared for his fans. He cared for the people around him. He took good care of all of us. Right. And we didn't double up on rooms. It was none of this, 4 guys to a Motel 6.
Right.
Because we did that in the 70s. I mean, everywhere we had to make a living. But, I remember riding around with Paul McKelvey and Bob Savage in a 64 Bonneville with a broken back window towing a trailer to go to a gig in Minot in the middle of the winter. I mean, and changing our clothes in the parking lot.
Yep.
So Glenn, it was Hyatts and Hiltons and Sheratons and Radissons and Ritzes and Fairmonts and riding in the airplane most of the time. Very little bus work unless it made economic sense. And he didn't do a lot of sound checks with us because he just could walk out and do it. And he trusted me and, everybody there to get it done. And sometimes the sound was average because we didn't carry sound for the first 10 years I was with him probably.
Right.
We were together in Branson when you were with Don Williams.
Yep,
we haven't talked about Don. That's the next question for you. But I remember how cool it was to see Don just walk out there, and they had some kind of like a little stage that his chair went on.
He had
a little riser.
Yeah.
And he would sit in there with that frumpy hat pulled down over his face, and you tell the story better than I do, but I just remember seeing him get out there and sing 3 songs, and then he just sat there and didn't say a word. And then he went,
he didn't need to.
He goes, "Well, all right." And everybody's cracking up, and he goes, "Anybody been fishing?" So, the fact that Glenn put me with all of these people, with so many great artists, and would introduce me to these guys. And we were doing Hee Haw one time, and it was just me because I was the band leader and conductor, so I got to work with the Hee Haw band, which is Glenn said, that's walking in tall cotton and wiping your butt on the top leaf. And he calls me over. He says, "Jeff, get over here." He said, "Jeff, this is Roger Miller. Roger, this is Jeff Dayton." And Roger goes, "Jeff Dayton, Summer When the Sun Goes Down." He started singing me one of my songs. Whoa is like, it was one of the hair-raising moments of my life.
I would say so.
And Glenn was generous that way.
Okay.
When I was new with him, he had me in the den at his house on Exeter, the one that he formerly lived in with Tanya.
Okay.
5 acres, citrus, horse property and all this. And there were 2 Ovation cases open on the floor. And they were both the 1987 collector's edition, pearl up and down the neck, around the headstock, around the body. He called them TV guitars. He goes, "Oh, I guess they made a mistake. They sent me 2. So here, you might as well take one." But that was his way of giving you something without drawing a lot of attention to himself. Like, aren't I magnanimous? He never grandstanded like that. He was very humble.
All right.
And we had a fan that passed away, and I told him about it. He hadn't heard, and he winced like I had just stabbed him with a shrimp fork and turned to cry in the other direction. He had a heart, a deep heart. And so, thanks for asking that. I mean, I hope it came close to answering your question.
That's kind of what I figured, but you never know. Ask somebody who's been there.
Yeah. Well, and, ferocious on a guitar. I've never been around anybody in my life that sang all but one note of 15 years of shows, 4,000 shows maybe, and backstage and out of tune. Yeah. He had no use for any of that because he did it.
Yeah.
Sinatra was his idol.
Yeah.
And Glenn could walk in like Frank did and do it right the first time.
Yeah.
That's the other thing that if there's anything I learned from Glenn, it's the years of experience with Tommy Tedesco, Leon Russell, David Gates, Carol Kay, Hal Blaine. I can go long on Glenn. You know? Let me play a little bit more, folks. This is another Russ Pahl piece of work here, and this is a song that I had a concept for, and I'm not sure I nailed it yet, but I really love it, and it's going to be on my next record, and this is one called Cowboys and Trains. We just cut this a few weeks ago. I had my choice of who was going to be there the day I recorded, and I said, Russ Pahl for the win.
Okay.
Where the buffalo roam, they laid down their steel from here to the coast. On two kinds of horses they thundered to fame, cowboys and trains. In leathers and feathers, with 6 guns and bows, and smokestacks that bellow that number 9 coal. They both know the loneliness out in the rain, cowboys and trains. Some left the cities dreaming of gold, some sought their freedom in the great wide unknown. On the backs of the bravest, the legends were made of cowboys and trains. Cool track, Russ.
Wow.
Atmosphere.
We were pretty good that day.
Yeah, well, a great band, too. Miles McPherson on drums. And
was that Troy on guitar?
Yep.
Love Troy.
Yeah, and Billy Nobel. And Pat McGrath.
Pat McGrath. Boy,
I got my butt kicked by Pat in tennis for so many years. Down in Branson, when he was playing in his first wife Michelle's band, we'd play down in Branson. You could go out afterwards, and you're all in town for the whole stand.
Right.
Play tennis under the lights or something. He killed me. Just really, I think he still plays quite a bit, from what I understand.
Well, Pat's one of those guys. It's still waters run very deep with Pat. When you meet him, he just seems kind of like a quiet guy. He's dangerous.
I love hearing that. Is there anybody that's on? I mean, you've done so much stuff, Russ, and people love you. I mean, I remember when I first came to town, everybody said, "You want different? Call Russ." And I had my Emmons when I moved here in 2000. I've been visiting for 15 years writing, and that's when I got that straight cut. In fact, I went to George Strait was going to cut my song Any Old Time, and so Irv Woolsey took the publishing on it and opened the Muy Bueno catalog with that. And he had me in his office and he said, "Hey, have you ever heard of this steel player named Paul Franklin?" I said, "Yeah, he plays with Phil Baugh on Mondays at the Hall of Fame." And and it's Robbie Jacobs and, Jerry Rowan. He said, "Is he any good?" I said, "Yeah, he's really good." He says, "Good, because we're thinking about using him on George's next record." And that was the beginning.
Wow. Well, that's been a long, good relationship.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I moved here in 2000, and I had my steel, and I knew better than to embarrass myself in front of this town on steel guitar, because there was you, Mike Johnson. I mean, Mike Cass was still around.
Yeah.
Gary,
Gary Morris.
Gary Morris was here. And of course, Doug Moore, Paul Franklin. I've gotten to work with so many different guys, and then getting to meet Scotty Sanders is, undoubtedly, hands down, the quickest study of just get it on the first.
Right.
And, working with guys like, I absolutely love Jimmy Carter on bass.
Oh, man.
And he's the sweetest dude. And I remember dropping his name when I was talking to Tom Bukovac, and he said, "Carter's got the best batting average in town."
Oh, yeah. No, Jimmy and I have lots of history. We played 1 million sessions together. We were in a band together for a short while.
That he doesn't like playing live, so maybe that was an exception.
Well, I'm probably why he doesn't like playing live.
But of all the things you've done, Russ, and all the places you've been, and I know you've got a wonderful wife, Ginger, and you guys have a place out of town in the country, and you've got a place here in town, and you're still really in demand. I remember Larry Beard telling me one time we broke down all of the number one records of the year in country music, and of the 10 songs that had steel guitar on them, Russ was on 8 of them.
Whoa.
Yeah, I don't know if that never got around to you, huh?
No, I generally sometimes that information finds its way to me, but I generally don't go looking for it because it's, most of the time if you go looking for something, you're going to be disappointed. So I've learned to not go looking for stuff like that. So.
Wow. Well, I guess that sort of answers my question is there anybody that you haven't worked with that you would drop this interview and say, Jeff, I got to go right now?
Well, there's people, I wish I could have played with Gordon Lightfoot. I mean, he had great steel guitar on a lot of his records and stuff, but I just love that. It's just I would have liked to have played with the Beatles. Hell, No, I'm very fortunate that I've landed in some places that I have, and a lot of it is just sort of serendipity how you end up there. There's no real direct route to it, and then some of it. So a lot of it is just your personal relationships that you build over the years in this town, and
so it's the hang, isn't it?
It's the hang. Yep. It's the hang.
That's the theme that just keeps coming up on all the Nashville musician interviews that we've done here on Count It Off. It's the hang. You run like a gerbil up somebody's leg and bring your resume with you, they're probably not going to invite you back. I mean, look at the Leon Russell story.
Yeah.
You just end up on Leon Russell's project.
Right.
And you just be yourself, and Leon takes a liking to you.
Yeah.
And brings you to another thing.
Well, that's kind of a pattern that happens with me is I, come within somebody's orbit, and it doesn't always work. There's been times where I've worked with somebody once and never heard back from them, but there's been a number of times where they go, "Hey, get that guy back again."
Oh man.
And and then you end up developing a relationship. Then you kind of become friends, and it's not like you become buddy with these people because they travel in whole different stratos. I'm still a lowly Nashville musician, and that's just fine. I don't want but there's levels of celebrity that we can't even imagine.
I can only guess at that. Your name keeps coming up when I see things like Guthrie Trapp playing one of your RP guitars.
Yeah.
Or, I'm down at Billy Alcorn's office, down there at Alcorn Custom Case. You've got one of your Telecasters. Tell us about, you love building guitars?
I've always loved to tinker. I mean, the day after the Beatles were on Ed Sullivan, I was putting knobs on a guitar, so that hasn't stopped.
Yeah.
I've got a real nice workshop up in Kentucky, and I put, Fender-style guitars together. I source out the parts. I've got a place I get the bodies. I get the necks from a different place. Where I go the deepest myself is I make all my own pickups from scratch.
Well, yeah.
And I need to sit down and build some guitars because I got people kind of bugging me. But that's kind of my marketing strategy is I don't have a marketing strategy and I don't promote them. And generally I learned I can't please anybody trying to make a custom guitar for somebody because then they're always, this is not exactly what I wanted. So I generally just make a guitar for myself, and then like Guthrie, he picked it up, and then I never got it back.
And you also have your own steel guitar build, and it's unusual because it's a single neck, as you mentioned, took the back neck off. Yeah. And now you're using a double bod, as Clinton would say.
Yeah.
But you've got a single neck in the middle of it.
Well,
right?
Yeah. Jeff Surratt, who lives out in past Mount Juliet, he has a company called Show Pro.
Okay.
And Jeff, I first met him, he was back in the late 60s and 70s, there was 2 guys at Showbud that did all the R&D. And it was Paul Franklin Sr., Paul's dad, and then Dwayne Mars.
Of Mars Guitars?
Yes.
Okay.
And
that's Mars with 2 R's, right?
yes, Mars. And so I used to go out to Dwayne's shop, and Jeff was working. He was his apprentice, basically. So Jeff was an apprentice to one of the master builders at Showbud. So when Dwayne passed, he sort of gave all his tooling and everything to Jeff. Wow. So Jeff is building kind of the modern Showbud style guitar with all of the Dwayne Mars upgrades. So I've known Jeff for a number of years, and he's built me, I think, 3 or 4 guitars now, and everyone gets a little further out, closer to kind of what I want. Yeah. And so we kind of ended up with it's an unofficial signature model. He's made a few of them, but it's not a big deal.
You have a switch or a knob or a control for a lot of your pedals too, don't you, on the guitar?
I do. A lot of modern pedals have the expression control jack on the back. So I have a couple knobs built into the guitar, so I can just run a chord to it. And like if I want to adjust my delay or any element of the effect, I can adjust it right from the guitar without having to bend over, and can do it in real time.
And that's the thing, your feet are busy.
Yeah, my feet are tied up. Trust me.
Riding that volume pedal.
Yep.
Yeah. To geek out on you a little bit, what brand of strings do you? What's your volume pedal these days?
Oh, well,
remember when the Edwards light pedal was all the rage?
Oh yeah, well, I had one of those. I've had most of everything. I go back and forth between their Goodrich pedals, and they made a light beam pedal about 15 years ago that they discontinued, and I really liked that. So I got on eBay and I bought up the world's supply of what was left. I think I have about 4 of them in a box, still brand new. Wow. But I use an old pot pedal too. I like the Emmons pedals.
Yep. I remember the ones that attached to the rack.
Yeah.
Yep.
But I rebuild them. I get in there and put in new pots and everything. So I'm always tweaking. So I go back and forth between an active electronic pedal and then the old-fashioned pot pedals. It's hard to find good potentiometers these days.
So you never built a steel for anybody else, though, did you?
No, I work on my own. I love it. I love Jeff's guitars. That's what I play. I endorse Jeff's guitars, but I also have a passion for Emmons push pulls, and I have a small fleet of those, and I'm always rebuilding them. And I do all my own work, but I'm hesitant to do steel work for other people just because I'm very slow at it, for one thing. If I charge them by the hour, I'd be rich. So.
Yeah, right. Well, I really regret selling my old single neck push pull. Mike Cass bought it, and I had no idea what it was worth, and I dumped it for maybe a quarter of what it was worth, thinking that, but he was smiling when he left,
Well, I still talk to Mike. He's out in Dixon. He's still chugging along.
Well, way to go. We've all had a good life, Russ, and I'm grateful to know you. And I'm going to let you in on a little piece of trivia. We are at over 1 hour on this podcast, and there's never been anybody I wanted to talk to for another hour at the end than you. So I appreciate you so much.
Man.
I'm going to take this opportunity to just play a little bit more of a song that was written back when I was writing with Jason Seaver. This is one from that same session that Major Bob had us on.
Okay.
This is one called It's Always Midnight. Chris McHugh on the drums. I call them hammer hands.
Oh, yeah.
Loudest snare drum in town, and then there's the up-tempos.
Baby, I've been working the overnight shift so long. The only part of the day I see is when the day's gone. The whole world's going home to somebody, and I'm just going to work. They're all rolling under the covers, sweet lovers, while I'm covered in dirt. Midnight lasts so long when you're bored and all alone. Check my heart to see if I'm alive. Check my watch just to pass the town. But every time, it's always midnight.
Our guest, Russ Pahl, on the steel guitar. Is that you on the dobro too? On the resonator?
No.
Was that Spriggs?
That's
probably?
Matt Spriggs.
Yeah. Well, man, I tell you what a blast to do this, Russ. And we'll hang out and just have some coffee. Talk to Judy one of these days across the street.
Yep.
You've got the appetite to know our legends and to hear their stories just like I do. And I love our old timers.
Yeah,
absolutely do.
My close friends, and they've all, every time one of the legends passes away, it's like a library that burns down. There's a bunch of firsthand information that suddenly becomes lore. But, so anytime I can talk to somebody that was actually there, I soak it up like a sponge.
You were that way with Lloyd Green, right?
Oh, yeah. No, I talked to Lloyd yesterday morning.
I listened to you. Yeah, you talked to everybody yesterday.
Well, yeah. No, Lloyd is a dear friend.
You produced his album, right?
Yeah. And we've done a few other tracks. In fact, we're kind of in the process of salvaging an old recording right now. So,
how cool. Well, thanks for being our guest. Again, our guest, Russ Pahl, legendary steel player among steel players in Nashville legends. And all you got to do now is say bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody. Hey, baby.
Thanks for joining us, and we hope you enjoyed this show. We invite you to check out all the other episodes and share this channel with all of your friends. Until next time, peace.